Good morning. Welcome to Frank's School's 52nd day of the 7th year first video. The end's in sight. I'm going on with the making of this my imagined movie Resurrection, and I'm describing it, especially the soundtrack. And I'm going to give a few more thoughts about Act 3. I just don't think I can go into Act 3 quite scene by scene by scene. There comes a point where you have to see what you've got that you're working with. I think, I know nothing about writing a screenplay, so that probably doesn't apply under normal conditions. Well, the two major things that have to occur in Act 3 is exchange has to be dealt with. How do they actually get the things they need? Exchange goods that they've been able to produce, whether garden goods or mostly manufactured goods. That has to be dealt with, and the apprentices come to sort of save the day and save themselves. Well, it occurred to me recently, and I told you that a huckster needs to become a character. I think this is a new character. I'm going to call him Francis, because I had this idea, sort of almost whimsically, that a cameo performance of I'm going to change this camera just a little. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. Pope Francis. In the Portuguese version of it, I imagined that the exchange, I should explain this, the exchange would be down in a different village where there is a feta, where there is a weekly feta, and a character there that could be helping them out some could be sort of the local hardware store owner. That's a different situation. In that case, they would take their goods to the feta, as it is normally done. In this situation here, I reversed that, where people would come to their field and their feta would be in their field. There's something else I reversed in my thinking here, in that the characters initially sort of come out of the mountain, out of the woods and out of the mountain and back in the beginning, whereas in the Portuguese version in my mind, the characters come up out of the population, up into the mountain where that village Chiqueiro is, or some other one. All right, so anyway, there's a huckster, and he arranges with Paul that there'll be a fair, but there'll only be one fair. I realized that would make my story more efficient for timing. I'm setting myself a limit of roughly 2 hours now for this movie, and I have no idea, really, I've got no idea how much time all this stuff will take. Don't know. But if I have only one fair, that simplifies things considerably. And the arrangement, this is wordless, so we'll have to just sort of see them talking it over. Would be with Paul. And Paul becomes, he's the woodworker. He's the mate, or the husband, if you will, to Robin. He's going to become a more important character, I think, sort of taking over where the old man Marion had been, because the old man's failing. Now, as part of this exchange, I thought Festus could buy some marijuana, some dope. Festus does not drink. That's a sign to those that are aware that he's Muslim. I think that's probably going to be certain that he is Muslim. Batch, no, so that's just one of the things that they could exchange, and other things. But now these characters' peculiarities have to be being maintained, along the way. And Batch, he's always fooling around with weird instruments like his slide whistle and his whoopee cushion and stuff. He could also start fooling around, or he should, with a mouthpiece. Just a mouthpiece to a horn. What can you do with just a mouthpiece? And there's a reason for that. Humor later on. Now, the arrival of the apprentices, I suggested that they'd be biking along, completely different music, going along, and all of a sudden catching sight of this and maybe wrecking. There's an allusion here, in a way, that can be made to the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I think that's the name of that movie, where those characters hear those three women singing and swimming in the little stream, which in itself is an allusion to the what do you call it, the sirens from the Odyssey. Anyway, Tom and Electra, in a similar way, at a certain point, they can make the arrangement with Paul that they are going to have a wedding, that they're going to get married there. They've chosen that as a place to get married. And more than that, we find out they're actually going to join the village. They're going to become village members. But that doesn't have to, it should not become immediately apparent that it's going to go that far. But anyway, Paul would make the arrangement with them, and that will happen after the fair, the one fair that they're going to have. That's all. This is setting the stage for Act 4, which will be major. All right, now the apprentices, they'll work in the gardens, they'll work on the buildings, they'll work in the shops, and it should probably show them over several days as they do this. This is a lot of the didactic part where these characters are passing their knowledge on and sharing their knowledge with these various apprentices. I could imagine there being as many as there are main characters. That they come dressed in their bicycling outfits, I think, every time as a contrast. All right, and now finally, I should say that by now there's 3 homes, 3 places where people spend their nights. One is the original one. The only ones left there are Batch and Festus. These are sort of adjoining us in one building. Another one is what ultimately will be the Gasthaus, where the old man Marion and Nama, that's their space. Nama has the sauna, Marion maintains the fire. That's another place. And a third place will be where this little family, Paul, his wife and or his mate and his son, she being pregnant, where they stay, which is 4 huts that have been folk huts that have been built together to make their home. So the evenings, once again, I wanted to revisit that idea. They could still spend their evenings together. You know, they don't have to go off to their individual places. And I imagine it would be where Batch and Festus are, or possibly, yeah, probably. And they could also be decommissioning things. I suggest that they could be playing these various things. They could be reading. They do various things that show that voluntary simplicity that doesn't need all these fancy big things. All right, so those are just more thoughts about Act 3. I think I can see it through to the end now, this movie. Bye for now.